Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
We are wrapping up the month of July already, believe it or not, and heading into August here, which, Jake, I don't know about you, but when I get to August and we talk about August, that's when it starts to hit me that hunting season's right around the corner, man.
Yeah, no doubt. Especially with the cool mornings the last couple of days. Mm-hmm. You go for walking and it just feels like the fall.
I know, right?
Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know, but it's starting to kind of feel like the fall.
That's my favorite season, so I say it's a good thing there, dude. So, football.
I do like it. I do like it, but it just always reminds you how fast the summers go.
Yep. So, hey, speaking of hunting season, we got a question, and I know we talked about this before, but it's probably a good refresher, and we talked a little bit about bear hunters last week, but somebody had texted in, can bear hunters run their dogs, train their dogs wherever, or do they still need permission from property owners?
Yeah, so we did hit it a little bit last week, but we didn't go too in-depth on it. But when it comes to hound training or bear training or bear dog training, you can do it anywhere in the state. So you can run it on any public land, and then you can run them on any private land where you have permission. So obviously it's just like, people walking through private land. You or your dogs can't go on private property of another without consent. But starting July 1st, anywhere in the state, which includes, all the way down to Milwaukee, basically, you can train your dogs, anywhere. When after August 31st, so starting in September, that does change. You can't train them, you can't run them or train them south of 64. Basically, you can only hunt with them north of 64. So once September comes, it changes a little bit. But July, August, you can train them, run them, whatever, anywhere in the state.
Okay. So, and obviously, I would assume, like with hunting wise, it's normal need permission on property owners and all that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yep, hunting, fishing, trapping, anything like that, going for walks, you have to have consent to go on someone else's private land, or if it's private land but open to public use, there's got to be a sign or something stating that the public's allowed. There are pieces of property around the state where a private landowner owns it, but they want to open it up to the public without selling it to the state or joining some sort of program. So there are some of those properties. They usually have a community parking spot, and they'll have their own signs up saying private property, access it with permission, respect it or it'll get closed, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. We also had a texter that asked Jake, if someone tells me that I can't fish on public land while I'm fishing, should I call the DNR or do I call the police department?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, anytime someone confronts you for fishing harassment, hunting harassment, trapping harassment, anytime you're out legally hunting, fishing, trapping, or even boating, snowmobiling, ATV, and anytime someone's harassing you and it's related to the outdoors or the natural resources, there's kind of two answers to it. The first answer is if you ever feel like your life is endangered or your health or safety, we always say call 911 first, because they always have their dispatchers going. They always have someone working, and we might be working too, and we'll hear it come over the radio and respond with them. But if you ever think that you're endangered, your human health, safety, stuff like that, always call 911 first, and we'll respond with the deputies. If you're on a trout stream and continually you always walk past this one property where the guy comes out and yells at you, says you can't be there, but doesn't get aggressive or come down to the stream bank or anything like that, then we'd encourage you just to call our tip line at 1-800-TIP-WDNR. Call that number. They'll take all the information, then they'll send it out to the local warden to follow up with you on it.
Does that happen often, at least in your experience?
Yeah, hunter harassment is probably the hunter harassment and fishing harassment on streams or rivers that go through private properties are probably the two biggest ones. But for sure, hunter harassment around, usually it's usually a landowner dispute, whether the neighbors don't like each other, they question the property lines. One person's hunting too close to the other property line, even though it's legal, stuff like that. It usually ends up being stuff like that. And then people, you get a little too rambunctious or caught up in the moment and do something, whether it's legal, illegal. Some people just try to harass the others, and we try to work through it without citations and get it to a better spot. But sometimes if someone's really harassing someone else, it's a pretty big fine, and it can escalate into other offenses.
Gotcha. Really quick, we had a last-second question that came in just a little bit ago. But they were wondering, Jake, can you leave ladder stands on public land for hunting?
So there are some places in northern Wisconsin where a few years ago they kind of did I don't know if experiment's the right word, but they're kind of testing it out where you can have stands up on state lands. They got to be totally marked, and you can only have them for a certain amount of days on certain lands. Unfortunately, I haven't really worked up there. I haven't had any complaints in my career with it and had to enforce it, so I don't know the logistics or the regulations with that specifically. But I know up north there are some certain situations where you can. Basically, for sure, south of 64, Chippewa County, anywhere where we are down here, any state lands, you cannot leave ladder stands, hang-on stands, anything like that on the property overnight. If you bring one out in the morning and you have it marked with your DNR customer ID number, you go home for lunch, come back in the evening, hunt and take it down, that's okay. But it cannot stay up overnight. And those are for state lands. So if you're hunting county lands, Eau Claire County, Forest, Chippewa, the Clark, they all have their own different rules. So you'd have to look at their county forestry or county land use department's website and find out what you can and can't do on those. Those are their rules, so we can't enforce them. Eau Claire copies us, the DNR, the state, as in you can't leave stands overnight. You can leave cameras if they're labeled and stuff like that. But I do know, Clark has, I'm not 100% sure on the rule, but I'm pretty sure it's a week before whatever the hunting season is, you can put your stand out, and then you got to remove it after the season. But that's why you got to look up their regulations before you start leaving your stands on different public properties.
Gotcha. One more quick, if you don't mind, that kind of came in here. Said sorry for the late question here, but the other night I saw what looked like a bass boat on Half Moon Lake, but they were just using a troller. Is that legal for Half Moon Lake?
That is legal for Half Moon. So just as a disclaimer, Half Moon Lake is governed. They got a city ordinance that restricts the use of combustion or motor engines on the lake. So I can't enforce it. So anytime I get complaints or hotlines on it, I have to ship it to the police department. So if you do see someone ripping around on a motorboat tubing or something, I would always encourage you to call the non-emergency line for Eau Claire. But they can do that for sure. You can put a regular boat out there as long as you're using the trolling motor or paddles or whatnot, and you're not using the motor, you can have it out there.
All right. Good stuff there, too. Jake,
yeah.
Anything else before I let you go that you kind of want to throw out? I know we got tags that are going to be coming up here, in August, too. So.
Yeah, no, just kind of hit on last week. Bobcat Fisher applications are due soon. The bonus tags are going to be late, mid-August. We're a month and 5-6 days away from the waterfall season where you're going to need a federal license and, waterfall stamp and early season licenses and state licenses. So, if you're not one to just buy the patron's license at the beginning of the year, definitely start, being proactive and getting online and buying licenses or going down to the service center and talking with the nice guys and girls down there, and they can tell you what you got, what you need, and everything like that.
Good stuff, as always. Jake, we appreciate the time, buddy. Stay safe, and we'll catch up with you again soon, okay, sir?
Yeah, that sounds great. You have a great week.
You too. There you go. Jake Bolks, Conservation Warden for the state of Wisconsin.